Hello. I'm really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your thoughts move at their own pace. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where memories return not urgently but patiently, where understanding settles in quietly without needing words. Later in life, the mind doesn't race the way it once did. It reflects, it revisits, it connects dots that once seemed unrelated. And it does this most honestly when the lights are off and the world has gone silent. This space is for those thoughts, the ones that don't surface during the day, the ones that arrive only when you're alone with yourself, resting, remembering, and gently making sense of a long lived-in life. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed and allow this night to meet you where you are. And now, before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour, you're not alone in whatever wisdom you're carrying, whatever understanding you've earned, whatever truths rise to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. The room is quiet now. The house has settled into its nighttime stillness. Whatever noise the day carried, whatever demands it made, whatever voices filled your hours, they're gone now. They've retreated. And what's left is just this: the soft weight of the bed beneath you, the gentle pressure of the pillow against your head, the slow, unconscious rhythm of your own breathing, and your mind, still moving, still working, still wandering through rooms and years and faces that only appear at this hour. You've noticed this, haven't you? The way the mind refuses to simply stop when the body finally lies down. The way it has its own schedule, its own agenda, its own quiet determination to process and revisit and understand. You've lain in this position 1,000 times, intending to sleep, and found instead that your thoughts had other plans. Not anxious plans, not urgent ones, just a gentle, persistent need to move through things, to turn them over slowly in the dark, to look at them from angles you didn't have time for during the day. This is not insomnia. This is not something broken. This is the mind doing exactly what a long life has taught it to do. Reflect, reconsider, remember. The wandering mind of someone who has truly lived is not a restless mind. It's a rich one. It's a mind that has accumulated more than it can hold, quietly, more than it can process in waking hours, more than it can summarize with any simple telling. So it wanders, especially at night, especially in the dark, especially now. You weren't always like this. You remember when sleep came easily, when you put your head down and the lights simply went out, the way a switched-off lamp goes dark between one breath and the next. You were young then. The days were full, but not layered. The experiences were real, but not yet complicated by time or consequence or hindsight. You slept because you hadn't yet accumulated enough of life to keep you awake thinking about it. Now you have. Now there's decades of material that the mind wants to revisit. Decades of conversations that ended before they were finished. Decades of choices whose outcomes you've now witnessed fully. Decades of people who mattered. Decades of places that formed you. Decades of work and love and loss and quiet ordinary days that somehow, in the remembering, revealed themselves as extraordinary. So tonight, instead of fighting it, you let the mind wander. You give it permission. You pull the covers up a little higher, adjust your shoulders into the mattress, and you say quietly, to the part of yourself that never sleeps completely, go ahead. Remember what you need to remember. Think what you need to think. I'm listening. And it begins. The first place the mind goes tonight is somewhere you weren't expecting. It goes to a morning, not a night, a specific morning from your past, early, before anyone else in the house was awake. You were standing in a kitchen, perhaps, or sitting at a table. There was light coming through a window, that particular quality of early light that exists before the world gets busy with itself, golden and slow and unhurried. And you were just there, just present, holding a cup of something warm, not thinking about anything in particular, just existing in that quiet moment before the day demanded your participation. You remember how it felt. That specific texture of early morning silence, the way the house held its breath before waking, the way you could hear your own thoughts clearly in that stillness, not rushed or crowded out by noise, but clear and simple and your own. You were younger then. You didn't fully appreciate what you had in those moments. You were thinking about what came next, what the day required, what needed doing. You weren't fully inside that moment of peace. You were already partly somewhere else. That's one of the things the wandering mind understands now, that it didn't understand then. The value of stillness while you're inside it. Not after, not in retrospect, but during. You know now that those quiet mornings were gifts, that the ordinary Tuesday of 20 years ago, the one where nothing memorable happened, where you made breakfast and drove somewhere and had conversations you can no longer recall, that day was precious. That day was yours. And it passed without ceremony because you didn't know to mark it. Your mind wanders to ordinary days quite often in these quiet hours. Not the milestones, not the anniversaries or the graduations or the moments people photograph and frame and tell stories about at gatherings. Those days have been processed already. They've been told so many times they've acquired a kind of smoothness, like a stone turned over and over in a river until its original roughness is gone. No. The wandering mind at night returns to the unremarkable days, the ones that were just life, just Tuesday, just the texture of existing in a particular year, in a particular home, with particular people who moved through your days quietly and constantly and without fanfare. You think about the sounds that filled your life in different eras. The specific sound of a particular house on a weekday afternoon. The sound of someone you loved moving in another room. A door closing. Footsteps on a certain kind of floor. A voice calling from a distance. The clink of dishes being washed. the sound of a television program you never watched but always heard in the background, the particular creak of a specific stair. These sounds are gone now. That house is gone or different. Those people are older or absent or changed. But at night, in the stillness, you can hear them, not as haunting, not as grief, just as memory, faithful and detailed, offering you back what time has taken. This is one of the quiet gifts of having lived long enough. The memory becomes more vivid in the dark, more textured, more dimensional. In daylight, the past is something you recall. At night, it's something you inhabit, briefly, carefully, the way you might step into a room you haven't entered in years and find everything exactly as it was. The same light, the same smell, the same feeling of being in that particular place at that particular time with those particular people. The wandering mind at night is not escaping the present. It's visiting what the present is built upon. It's tracing the foundation. You're breathing slowly now. You can feel that. Your chest rises and falls without effort. Your body is doing what bodies know how to do when finally given permission to rest. The muscles in your legs are releasing. The ones in your shoulders and your jaw, the ones that spend the day holding tension without you even noticing, they're softening. Your hands, whatever they were holding during the day, whatever tasks they performed, whatever objects they picked up and put down and gripped and carried, they're open now, resting, still. But the mind continues. It doesn't soften the way the muscles do. It simply changes frequency. It moves from the sharp, directed focus of daytime to something slower and more diffuse, more like water than like a beam of light. It spreads outward. It finds its own level. It flows towards the places that have been waiting for it. It flows now toward people, the people who made you who you are. Not all of them. Not in any order that makes external sense. The wandering mind doesn't follow a timeline or an address book. It follows feeling. It finds the people who are connected to your life at its deepest level, the ones who shaped you before you were old enough to notice being shaped, the ones who taught you without intending to what love looks like and what it costs, the ones who stayed when staying was difficult, the ones who left when leaving was the only option they had. You think about your mother, not as she was at any single moment, but as a presence, the overall feeling of her, the way she moved through a room, the specific way she said your name in different moods. You could always tell, couldn't you, from just the first syllable of your name, what was coming, whether she was tired, or worried, or amused, or trying to be patient. Her voice was a language unto itself. You learned to read it before you learned to read anything else. And that knowledge, that fluency, lives somewhere so deep in you that it never fully leaves. Even now, even after all this time. You think about what she carried that you didn't know about when you were young. The weight she bore without naming it. The worries she absorbed so you wouldn't have to. The things she wanted that she set aside. The version of herself that existed before you came along. Before she became your mother. Before her own identity folded itself around the shape of parenthood and never fully unfolded again. You understand this now in ways you couldn't then. You've lived enough yourself to recognize the gap between who a person is and who they appear to be in their role. You were a child. She was your mother. But she was also a person with a private interior life as complex and unresolved as your own. You know that now. You wish you could have known it sooner. You wish you could have asked her different questions. Maybe you did ask, eventually. Maybe in the later years, when the roles shifted slightly and you sat together differently, more like two adults than like parent and child. Maybe some of that interior life was shared. Maybe she told you things. Maybe you told her things. Maybe there was an evening or several evenings when the conversation went somewhere real, somewhere beneath the practical and the familiar, somewhere true. If there were such evenings, they live in you now like something irreplaceable. If there weren't, then the wish for them lives there instead. Your father too, his particular presence, the way he occupied space, the things he said, and more importantly, the things he didn't say, the silences that you spent years interpreting, the lessons he taught deliberately and the ones he taught without knowing he was teaching, the ways he was limited by the era he grew up in, by the expectations placed on men of his generation, by what he was told strength was supposed to look like, the ways he exceeded those limitations when it mattered, the moments of unexpected tenderness that surprised you, that didn't fit the story you decided to tell about him, that complicated everything you thought you understood. You've been carrying both of them for a long time, longer than they've been gone. You've been carrying them since you were old enough to notice them clearly. The mind wanders toward them tonight, not in grief, though grief is present, but in something more like completion, more like understanding, more like the quiet recognition that you've become, in ways both intentional and involuntary, a combination of what they gave you and what you created in response to what they gave you. You are partly them. You are partly the person who formed in reaction to them. Both are true. Both are you. The mind moves now, following its own logic, to a friendship, a specific one, someone who is important to you during a chapter of your life that was formative in ways you're still discovering. You were close in the way that's only really possible at certain ages, when identities are being formed and tested, when you need witnesses to your own becoming. This friend witnessed yours. You witnessed theirs. You spent hours together, days together, years together, in that particular intimacy of young friendship, where you told each other everything and believed that this closeness would never diminish. Of course, things change. They always do. Not dramatically, usually, not with a fight or a falling out, just with the gradual pressure of separate lives moving in separate directions. Responsibilities accumulated. Geography shifted. The hours you once had for each other became harder to find. The conversations that used to go all night began to happen once a year, then less. And at some point, you stopped being part of each other's daily texture and became instead something more like a season that you'd lived through together, something precious and finished, something that changed you and can never be unchanged. You think about that friend tonight, where they are, who they've become, whether they lie awake sometimes in their own dark room and remember the same things you're remembering, whether your name surfaces in their wandering mind the way theirs has surfaced in yours, whether they know, across whatever distance separates you now, that you still carry what you shared, that it still matters, that some part of you is still the person they knew, still recognizable, still marked by what you built together during those years. The body grows heavier now. You can feel it, the specific heaviness that comes when muscles fully release. When the body stops holding itself up, stops holding itself together, and simply allows the bed to carry it. This is one of the kindnesses of nighttime. You don't have to hold yourself up. You can let go of that particular effort, the effort of being upright, being functional, being present and available and coherent. You can just be horizontal, just be here, just breathe. The mind, though, remains light. It keeps moving, not frantically, not urgently, just steadily, like a river that doesn't stop when night falls. It flows through the landscape of your life, finding its own course, discovering what it needs to discover, returning to what it needs to return to. It returns now to your work, not the job necessarily, not the title or the tasks or the particular industry or profession, but the deeper work, the thing you gave your energy to across the years, the thing that required your particular combination of skills and temperament and experience, the thing you were good at or grew good at or struggled to be good enough at, the thing that, when you did it well, made you feel like you were in the right place, like you were using what you were given, like your presence in the world had a specific weight and purpose. You think about what you contributed, not in abstract terms, not as a resume or a list of accomplishments, but in the specific, human terms of what you actually gave. The times you helped someone understand something they couldn't understand before. The times your presence mattered to a specific person on a specific day. The times your skill or your experience or even your simple willingness to show up made a difference that rippled outward in ways you probably never fully saw. Because the best contributions are like that. They don't come back to you with a full accounting. They just go forward. They become part of other people's stories. They surface in the wandering minds of others at 3 a.m. when they're lying in their own beds, remembering the person who helped them once, the person who was there, the person who made something possible that otherwise might not have been. Someone out there is remembering you that way tonight. You may not know who. You may never know. But it's true. The things you gave, the small and large kindnesses, the expertise shared, the patience extended, the encouragement offered when someone needed it, those things are out there, still moving, still mattering, still part of the fabric of the lives you touched. The mind rests in this thought for a moment. It lets it settle. It doesn't try to verify it or quantify it. It simply allows it to be true because it is true, and because truth doesn't always need proof. Sometimes it just needs to be acknowledged. In the dark, quietly, by the person who lived it. You're still awake, but the boundary between waking and sleeping is becoming softer. You can feel that. The thoughts are still present, but they're moving more slowly now. The images that surface are slightly dreamlike, slightly loose at the edges, slightly disconnected from the firm geography of real memory. This is the threshold. This is where the wandering mind begins to shift from the active wandering of wakefulness to the deeper, stranger wandering of sleep. But not yet. Not quite yet. There's still more that the mind wants to move through. There's still more of your life it wants to honor before it finally lets you rest. So you stay with it. You follow where it leads. You trust that this wandering has a destination. Even if the path isn't straight, it leads now to a season of your life that was difficult. Not the most difficult, maybe not even in the top 3, but difficult in a specific way that was formative. A time when things didn't go the way you'd planned, when something you'd counted on fell through, when a version of the future you'd been building toward quietly disappeared, and you had to face the present as it actually was, rather than as you'd imagined it would be. You got through that time. You're here, which means you got through it. But the getting through wasn't graceful, or it wasn't always graceful. There were days when you didn't handle it well, when you were less than you wanted to be, when fear or bitterness or exhaustion made you smaller than your best self. You remember those days without judgment now, or with less judgment than you once had. You were doing what you could with what you had. You were surviving, and survival isn't always elegant. What you discovered in that season, what all difficult seasons eventually teach if you stay awake to them, is that you are more resilient than you'd imagined. Not invincible, not immune to being broken open, but capable of being broken open and still continuing. Capable of losing something significant and still finding a way forward. Capable of being in genuine darkness and still somehow carrying a small interior light that nothing could quite extinguish. This discovery, this knowledge of your own endurance is one of the things only difficulty can teach. You didn't want the lesson. You would have chosen easier instruction. But the lesson came anyway, and you learned it, and it became part of who you are. The room is completely still now. If there were sounds earlier, a car passing outside, a house settling, a distant television, they've been absorbed by the deep quiet of the late hour. This quiet has a texture of its own. It isn't empty. It's full. Full of everything that exists in the absence of noise. Full of the small sounds your own body makes. Full of the presence of the room around you. Full of the night itself, that enormous, unhurried, ancient darkness that has covered the world every night since the world began. You're part of this night, not separate from it, not waiting it out. Part of it, breathing in it, resting in it. Your body is old enough to know how to accept the night instead of resisting it. Old enough to have made a kind of peace with darkness. Old enough to understand that the night is not the absence of day. It's its own complete thing, its own world, with its own gifts, its own beauty, its own particular honesty. Because the night is honest in a way that daylight isn't. In daylight, you perform, even just slightly, even when you're with people you love. You present, you manage, you shape how you come across, consciously or not. But at night, alone, in the dark, under the covers, with no one to see and nothing to perform, you're just yourself, the accumulated self, all the versions stacked inside the current one, the child still in there somewhere, the young adult still in there, every age you've ever been, still present, still part of the composite that is you tonight. in this bed, in this room, in this life. This is what the wandering mind moves through in these quiet hours. Not just events and people and memories, but versions of yourself, visits to who you were, recognition of who you've become. And somewhere in that movement, somewhere in that gentle back and forth between then and now, a kind of integration happens, a kind of wholeness assembles itself quietly in the dark, not loudly, not with any announcement, just a quiet settling into the full shape of a life genuinely lived. You breathe. You let your eyes close completely. You feel the weight of everything you've carried, not as burden, but as substance, as proof of presence, as the unmistakable evidence of a life that has mattered, that has moved through the world leaving traces, that has loved and worked and struggled and continued and arrived here tonight, to this quiet hour, to this wandering, remembering, still moving mind, resting at last in a body that knows how to rest, even when the mind hasn't yet caught up. The mind is still wandering. It will wander a while longer. There's more to visit, more to remember, more to understand. But for now, in this particular moment, there is peace. There is enough. There is the soft darkness and the warm weight of covers and the steady rhythm of breathing and the knowledge that you are here and that here, tonight, is enough. The mind is still wandering. You knew it would be. You've known for years now that this is simply how your nights work. The body settles first. The body is practical and wise in its own way. It knows what it needs and it takes it without asking permission. But the mind has its own relationship with the night, its own separate agreement. It will rest, yes. It will eventually grow quiet, but not before it has moved through what it needs to move through. Not before it has done what it came here to do in these dark, unhurried hours. And so you let it continue. You follow where it leads. You have learned over many years and many nights exactly like this one that the following is easier than the fighting. That surrender, in this particular context, is not weakness, but wisdom. So you stay soft, you stay open, you breathe, and you let the mind take you where it will. It takes you somewhere tender tonight, somewhere you don't always allow yourself to go in daylight. It takes you to the subject of regret, not the sharp, urgent regret of recent mistakes, not the kind that arrives with accusation and demands immediate attention, but the older regret, the settled kind, the kind that has been living with you for so long it has lost its edges, the kind that no longer cuts, but simply sits beside you, patient and familiar, like an old companion you never chose, but somehow can't imagine being without. You have regrets. Of course you do. Anyone who has lived fully and chosen honestly and loved genuinely has regrets. The absence of regret would mean the absence of care. It would mean you never tried anything that mattered enough to fail. It would mean you never loved anyone enough to wish you'd loved them better. It would mean you passed through your life without fully inhabiting it, without risking enough, without leaning into the moments that required something real from you. So the regrets are proof of something. They're evidence of engagement, of presence, of having been, in the deepest sense, actually here. But you know the specific ones. the ones that surface reliably in the dark. The conversation you didn't have when you had the chance. The person you didn't call back when you still could. The apology you composed in your head 100 times and never delivered. The opportunity you declined out of fear that you later understood wasn't caution, but cowardice. The years you spent being smaller than you were capable of being, playing it safe in ways that served no one, least of all yourself. You hold these tonight without turning away from them. You've been turning away from them for a long time, filling the days with noise and activity and the comfortable busyness that keeps difficult things at a manageable distance. But here, in the dark, in the stillness, with no noise to hide behind and no activity to run toward, you hold them plainly. You look at them directly, and something remarkable happens when you do. Something that only seems to happen at this hour, in this quality of darkness, with this particular quality of attention. The regrets become smaller, not unreal, not erased, but smaller, more proportionate, more human-sized, less like defining failures and more like the natural, inevitable consequences of being a person who was doing their best in circumstances that were sometimes genuinely difficult. You were never omniscient. You made decisions with the information you had at the time, in the emotional state you were in at the time, with the maturity and the understanding that you had developed up to that particular point. You couldn't have known then what you know now. No one can. That's not an excuse. It's just true. And the truth, looked at plainly in the dark, is that you were trying. You were genuinely trying, almost always. Even when trying looked like something that could be mistaken for not trying. Even when the effort was invisible because it was interior. Even when you failed visibly, you had, in most cases, been trying invisibly for longer than anyone knew. Let that settle. Let the mind rest in that truth for a moment. You were trying. It was real. The effort was real. The love behind the effort was real. And the places where you fell short were not evidence of a fundamental deficiency in your character. They were evidence of being human in conditions that humans find genuinely hard. There is compassion available for you in this thought if you'll receive it. The same compassion you would offer immediately, without hesitation, to anyone else who came to you with the same story. You would be gentle with them. You would remind them of their goodness. You would help them see their trying. Tonight, in the dark, you offer that same gentleness to yourself. The mind moves on. It doesn't linger too long in any one place. It knows that these night journeys need balance. That too long in difficult territory creates its own kind of exhaustion. So it moves toward something lighter, something warm, something that carries the particular sweetness of simple, uncomplicated joy. It moves toward laughter. You think about times you laughed until you couldn't breathe. Genuinely, helplessly, completely laughed. The kind of laughter that takes you entirely, that removes your dignity and your composure and your self-consciousness and reduces you to a pure, simple, joyful animal who can do nothing but laugh and keep laughing. Even when you think you've stopped. That kind of laughter. You've had it. Maybe not recently. Maybe it belongs more to earlier chapters, but you've had it, and the memory of it lives in your body as well as your mind. You can feel the shape of it even now, the way your face changed, the way your whole chest opened, the way the person you were laughing with became, in that moment, your absolute favorite human being in the entire world. Who were you laughing with? Your mind goes to them now. The people who made you laugh like that. The specific humor of specific relationships. The private jokes that no one outside the friendship or the family could ever fully understand. The references that required years of shared history to land. The particular way certain people could make you helpless with laughter by doing almost nothing at all. Just a look, just a timing, just the right word delivered in exactly the right tone at exactly the right moment. That gift, that specific, irreplaceable gift of being someone who could make you laugh that way. You were lucky to have those people. Some of them are still here. Some of them are not. But the laughter is still here. It's stored in you. It's part of your permanent collection. You think about joy more broadly. Not happiness, which is different. Happiness is a condition, an overall assessment. Joy is a moment, a flash, a specific vivid experience of something being exactly right. You've had many moments of joy, more than you typically count when you're assessing your life in daylight terms. The nighttime counting is more accurate, more generous, more inclusive of the small joys that the daytime inventory tends to overlook. The smell of a meal being cooked by someone who loved you and was cooking specifically for you. The feeling of arriving home after a long absence and recognizing in the specific air of your own space that this is yours. The first morning of a long-awaited vacation when the whole stretch of free days lay open ahead of you. The particular joy of a book that was so good you were sad when it ended. The joy of finishing something difficult. The joy of a conversation that surprised you with its depth. The joy of watching something or someone you love succeed. The joy of a landscape so beautiful it made you stop and stand still and feel, briefly, the profound privilege of being alive in a world that contains such things. These joys are yours. They are not diminished by being in the past. They are not less real for being memories. They are part of your permanent wealth, the kind that cannot be taken or taxed or inflated away. The kind that belongs to you completely, that lives inside you, that you carry with you into every room you enter and every night you lie down in. You are a person who has experienced joy, real joy, genuine, felt in the body, remembered for decades joy. This is not nothing. In fact, it is quite a lot. Your breathing has deepened without you noticing. That happens in these long night wanderings. The body takes advantage of the mind's distraction. While the mind is busy elsewhere, the body quietly does what it needs to do. It slows, it deepens. It begins the long, gradual process of crossing over. You're not asleep yet, but you're closer than you were. The edges of the room have softened. The darkness has a different quality now, warmer and more enveloping, less like an absence and more like a presence, like something that is actively holding you rather than simply surrounding you. The mind makes one more turn. it moves toward the people who are still here, the ones who are alive and present in your current life. Not the memories, not the ghosts, the actual living, reachable people who exist in your world right now, and who, if you called them tomorrow, would answer. Who, if you said you needed them, would come. These people are easy to overlook in the nighttime wandering, which tends toward the past, but they deserve acknowledgement too. They deserve to be seen clearly in the light of this honest, late-night attention. Think about who they are, the ones who have stayed, the ones who have made staying a choice, a repeated choice across years and changes and difficulties and the inevitable shifting of circumstances. Staying is harder than it looks. It requires constant renewal, constant recommitment. The choice to stay with a person, with a friendship, with a family relationship that has accumulated history and therefore complication is a choice that gets made again and again across a lifetime. The people who have made that choice about you, who have renewed it again and again, who are still here after all this time, they are not here by accident. They are here because they chose to be, because you mattered enough to them to keep choosing. You think about what you want them to know, not what you've told them, what you want them to know. The gap between those two things, the told and the wanted to be known, is often significant. You've said the practical things. You've said the expected things. You've probably said I love you in the ways you know how to say it. But there are other things, deeper things that are harder to say in daylight because they require a vulnerability that the daytime world doesn't always provide safe conditions for. Things like, you changed me. Things like, I would not be who I am without what you gave me. Things like, I see you clearly, and what I see is remarkable, and I'm not sure I've ever said that in a way that truly landed. These things are worth saying. They're worth finding a way to say, in whatever form works, in whatever moment opens up. The nighttime wandering reminds you of this. It presents the unsaid things as a kind of gentle inventory, not a list of failures, not a record of what you've withheld, just a quiet acknowledgement that there is more to express than has been expressed, and that the people worth expressing it to are still, thankfully, here to hear it. The night has deepened further still. You can feel the lateness of it, that specific quality of the very late hours that is different from early night. Early night still carries traces of the day. Early night still has some of the day's momentum in it, some of its energy, some of its unfinished business. But this hour, this deep and settled hour, belongs entirely to itself. The day is genuinely gone. Tomorrow hasn't begun. There is only this precise, unrepeatable moment suspended between what was and what will be. This breath, this heartbeat, this wandering, tireless, faithful mind doing its slow and necessary work. You think about time, not anxiously, not with the particular dread that thoughts about time sometimes carry, just with a kind of clear-eyed acknowledgement of what you now know about it that you couldn't have known when you were younger. You know that it moves at different speeds in different seasons, that some years pass in what feels like weeks, that some weeks feel like years, that the slow years, the ones that felt endless, and sometimes tedious while you were inside them. The years of repetitive routine and quiet dailiness, those are often the ones you miss most deeply when they're gone. Because the repetition was also constancy. The routine was also stability. The quiet dailiness was also a kind of abundance. Life, a full and living life, happening continuously around you and with you. Not yet something to be looked back on, but something to be inside. You know that the past is not gone in the way that young people tend to imagine it's gone. The past is not behind you like a road you've left. It's inside you, like a structure. The house you built year by year, choice by choice, relationship by relationship, experience by experience. You live in that house. Every room of your present self was built by something that happened before. Every quality you possess, every strength, every limitation, every instinct, every fear, every source of ease and comfort has its origins in something that came before this moment. You are the living summary of everything you've experienced. You contain it all. It didn't leave when it ended. It became part of you, and it's here right now, lying in this bed, breathing in this room, listening to these words in the deep quiet of this particular night. This is not a small thing. This is, in fact, a profound and rather extraordinary thing. You are a repository, a living archive. Everything that ever happened to you, every person who ever touched your life, every landscape you ever moved through, every book you ever read, every meal you ever shared, every conversation that went somewhere true, every moment of beauty that stopped you in your tracks, all of it is in you, not faded, not discarded, transformed, yes, integrated, made part of the ongoing structure of who you are, but present. All of it still present in you. The mind wanders now towards the body itself. Your body. This body that has carried you through all of it, through every single one of those experiences, all those decades, all those miles, all that living. You're aware of it tonight, in the way you become aware of things when they're at rest. The specific weight of your own limbs, the particular way your back feels against the mattress, the small complaints your body has developed over the years, the ones that remind you each morning that you've been alive long enough to accumulate history in your joints and muscles and bones. The body keeps its own record, its own version of the story. You haven't always been kind to this body. Almost no one is when they're young. When you're young, the body feels like a given, like something permanent and reliable that will simply continue, regardless of how you treat it. You pushed it past its limits sometimes. You ignored its warnings. You fueled it poorly on occasions and rested it insufficiently and asked it to perform under conditions that weren't fair. And it did. It performed. It kept going. It absorbed the demands and the neglect and the occasional genuine punishment, and it kept carrying you forward. And then it started asking for more consideration. You noticed the asking, those first twinges of undeniable limitation, those first mornings when recovery took longer than it used to. And slowly, over years, you learned to listen better, to respond to what the body was telling you, to understand that taking care of it wasn't vanity or self-indulgence, but simply the basic maintenance of the only vehicle you would ever have for being in the world. You learn to be a better steward of it, perhaps not perfect, but better, more attentive, more respectful of what it needed and what it was telling you. Tonight the body is grateful. You can feel that, can't you? The particular ease that comes when everything has been done for the day and the body can finally lay down its duties. The mattress receives it like something that has been expected. The covers settle over it like something that has been waiting. The pillow accepts the weight of the head with a gentleness that feels almost intentional, almost caring. The body releases with a long, slow exhale of everything it's been holding, everything it's been carrying, everything it's been managing since morning. And in the releasing, in that long and genuine physical exhale, there is something very close to gratitude coming from the body itself. Gratitude for rest, gratitude for the bed, gratitude for this horizontal hour when nothing more is required. Be grateful back. Send your own gratitude inward to the body that has served you faithfully across all these years. It is not the body you had at 30. It doesn't move the way it did at 40. It has limitations now that require patience and accommodation. But it is here. It is breathing. It is warm. It is alive. And that is more than enough for gratitude. That is, in fact, the primary and most fundamental thing there is to be grateful for. Being alive tonight. Being here. Breathing in and breathing out in this quiet room, at this quiet hour, with this faithful, tireless, still functioning body, carrying you forward into one more night, one more sleep, one more morning on the other side. The mind is slowing. You can feel it happening, not stopping. The wandering mind doesn't stop entirely, not even in sleep. It simply changes its mode of travel. From the deliberate, purposeful wandering of these conscious nighttime hours to the freer, stranger, less accountable wandering of dreams. The transition is gradual. The boundary is not a line, but a gradual dimming, a softening of the distinction between what you're thinking and what you're imagining, between what you're remembering and what you're constructing, between the real past and the dreamed version of it that sleep will offer. You're almost there, almost at that threshold where the wandering mind releases its grip on the world it knows and allows itself to move into the world it creates. But before it does, one final wandering, one last territory to move through before sleep comes. It moves toward meaning, toward the quiet question that lives at the center of every examined life. The question you've never fully answered and perhaps never will. The question of what it was all for. Not asked in despair, not asked with the hollow feeling that sometimes accompanies it in darker moments. Asked tonight with genuine curiosity and something approaching peace. Asked by a mind that has spent this entire long night moving through the evidence, through the people and the memories and the joys and the regrets and the work and the laughter and the love. Asked by a mind that has looked at all of that evidence carefully and finds itself arriving, almost involuntarily, at something that feels like an answer. It was for this. All of it was for this. For the accumulation of genuine experience, for the building of real relationships, for the giving and receiving of actual love in its many imperfect and beautiful forms, for the work that mattered, however quietly, for the laughter that opened you, for the grief that deepened you, for the ordinary Tuesdays that were in fact days of living, full days, real days, days that counted, for the difficult seasons that revealed your resilience, for the gentle seasons that restored you, for the people you shaped and who shaped you, for the moments of beauty that reminded you what world you were lucky enough to inhabit, for the wandering mind at the end of a long day, at the end of a long life, that still finds things worth visiting, still finds people worth thinking about, still finds meaning worth uncovering in the dark. That's what it was for. Not a grand purpose delivered from outside, not a mission with a clear beginning and measurable end, but this, the ongoing, imperfect, genuine living of a life, the showing up, the continuing, the loving as well as you could with what you had, the trying, that endless and often invisible trying across all the years and in all the circumstances. This was the point. You were the point. Your presence in the world, your specific and unrepeatable presence, was the point. And you were here. You showed up. You lived it. The point was made. The room is so quiet now. So absolutely, completely, gently quiet. The darkness is total and soft and somehow kind. Your body is heavy with rest, heavy with the rightful weight of a day completed, a life continuing, a night fully received. Your mind is almost still, almost. Still a few last threads of thought moving like water over stones, smooth and slow and barely audible. You think briefly of tomorrow, not with planning, not with the tightening that comes when tomorrow arrives as a list of obligations, just with a simple, open curiosity. Tomorrow will come. It will bring its own ordinary texture, its own particular quality of light, its own small moments of the kind that, seen in the right frame, in the late-night frame, in the frame of a wandering mind that understands their value, are revealed as gifts. You will wake into it. You will move through it. You will add it to the archive that is you. And tomorrow night, or some night not far from now, you will lie here again, and the mind will wander again, and you will visit tomorrow from the vantage of future darkness, and it will have become a memory, and it will carry its own small and unremarkable beauty, and you will be glad you had it. You're glad you are having this one, this night, this particular quiet hour at the end of this particular day. You are glad the mind has wandered where it's wandered. Glad it returned to your parents and your friend and your work and your regrets and your joys and your body and your meaning. Glad it moved through all of it with honesty and without cruelty. Glad it arrived here, at this almost sleeping place, at this threshold, carrying everything it moved through like flowers gathered on a long walk. Not a burden, a collection, a testament to the richness of a life genuinely lived. Your eyes are closed. They've been closed for a while. The darkness behind them is its own private world now, soft and faintly moving the way darkness moves when sleep is near. The thoughts are no longer fully formed. They're more like impressions, traces, the emotional residue of the places the mind has visited tonight. A warmth here, a face there, a sound from long ago. The feeling of laughter, the feeling of being held, the feeling of having mattered to someone, the feeling of having been here, fully here, present and alive and engaged in the long and extraordinary, ordinary project of a human life. The wandering mind is finding its rest, not by stopping, not by forcing itself into silence, but by having said what it needed to say, by having visited what it needed to visit, by having done, in these quiet, dark hours, what it has always done and will continue to do as long as you are alive to let it. It has kept you company. It has kept the night from being empty. It has filled the darkness with the specific and irreplaceable richness of your particular life, your particular memories, your particular loves and losses, and ordinary holy days. It has been faithful. It has been generous. It has been, in its own wandering way, a gift. Now let it rest. Now let everything rest. The body is already there, already deep and warm and still. The mind is following. You can feel it following, the thoughts growing lighter, the memories becoming softer at their edges, the whole interior world quieting by degrees, the way a room quiets when the last voices leave and the last light goes off and the last movement stills and there is finally, completely, gently, nothing to do but be. You are enough. You have always been enough. Every version of you that wandered through this night, the child you once were, the young adult you became, the person in the middle of the story who couldn't yet see how it would go, the person you are now, resting, remembering, still present, still here. Every one of those versions was enough, was doing enough, was being enough. The striving was real, and the falling short was human, and the trying was genuine, and the loving was true. All of it counts. All of it was real. All of it was you, living your life as honestly and fully as you knew how. The night holds you now. This ancient, patient, faithful night. The same darkness that has covered every human being who has ever lived. The same silence that has received every wandering mind that ever needed to wander before it could rest. You are not alone in this darkness. You are held by it. You are part of it. You and the night have reached an understanding, the kind that can only be reached after many years together. You know each other. You trust each other. You know that the night will release you into morning. You know that morning will return you to the world. And you know that the world, for all its difficulty and all its beauty and all its ordinary, unremarkable, quietly precious days, is worth returning to. But that is tomorrow. Tomorrow's gift waiting patiently on the other side of sleep. For now, there is only this breath, this warmth, this darkness, this wandering mind finally, gently, gratefully releasing its hold on the waking world and allowing itself to drift. Allow it, follow it. Let the thoughts become wisps. Let the memories become impressions. Let the night do what the night knows how to do. Let the body's wisdom carry you now, since the mind has done its work and can rest. Let everything you've carried today, this week, this year, this long and layered life, let it all set down its weight for these hours. It will be here when you wake. The memories will be here. The people you love will be here. The life you've built and the self you've become will all be here, waiting, ready to continue the story. But for now, for these hours, you don't have to carry any of it. You can simply be carried by the night, by the bed, by the slow and faithful rhythm of your own breathing. You are resting now, truly resting. The wandering mind has wandered far tonight, and it has found what it was looking for. Not answers exactly, not resolution, but something better than those things. Recognition. The quiet, honest recognition of a life that has mattered. A life that has been full. A life that, for all its imperfection and all its loss and all its ordinary, unremarkable days, has been genuinely, unmistakably, irreplaceably yours. Good night. The fires die down, the stories settle, and the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away like embers on the wind. You've journeyed far through time tonight. Now it's time to journey into dreams. Close your eyes, breathe, and let sleep find you.